All right, guys, let's chat about some motion tracking. And what else are we going to talk about today? Motion tracking, pretty much motion tracking. Some green screen, some compositing. There you go. I remembered. Okay, new composition. Hit OK. I'm going to drag in some files, import multiple files. What week are we under? Week 14? What do I have this under? I've got a laptop image sequence here. I'm going to select the first one. I'm going to import as a PNG sequence. Hit import. And I'm going to do the same for this single marker green screen here. Hit import. Boom. And we've got some image here. We've got laptop image here. Hit import. And I've got what else? What else? I think that's it. I've got some other footage we'll play with. We'll bring it in a little bit. Okay, that's it. So I brought my image sequences in here first. Let's start with our nice lady here. We'll bring her in. Obviously, she's scaled very odd. If I bring her into a new sequence based off of her settings, the resolution's super weird. So just to get around that, we're going to throw her into this composition. I'm going to adjust her scale to 150 to match this. And I'm going to trim down my comp to match the footage. Okay, so we got this lady walking on a green screen. Goal that we're going to do, we're going to cut her out. We're going to throw this image of Dubai, this nice, lovely image behind her. And we're going to track it because there's a camera movement. You can see the camera's moving around. We need to track that camera movement. So first things first, before we cut this all out, we need to track the camera movement using this nice blue square here. So let's select our footage. Let's go to tracker. If you don't see tracker here, go up to window, make sure tracker's selected. We're going to do track motion. It opens up the layer menu of our footage. We can zoom in here. It gives us one tracking point. We have motion source here selected as the dig. We have one tracker, and we are looking at transform, which is what we want to do. We have three options. We can track position, rotation, or scale, or all of the above. The camera doesn't rotate at all, and we're not moving in and out at all. The camera is stationary. There's no dolly movement. So we just want to do X and Y position. When you track footage, you have to apply the footage to something. We essentially want to say it's moving X and Y values every frame, and we need to send it somewhere to let it know what those movements are. So we're going to create a new null object to send that there. We'll just rename it tracker info. And we will make sure our target here, again, I clicked on our footage here again, edit target, make sure tracker info is selected, hit OK. So it gives us this lovely tracking point. We want to select the highest contrast areas possible. So we have this nice blue square here, and she never walks in front of it if you scrub through the footage here. So we don't have to worry about her covering it up at any point, so that's nice. So I'm going to select the corner of this blue dot. If we select the middle, it doesn't really know where it's going to go because there's blue all around it. So we need two contrasting colors or two contrasting light values next to each other, like a black and white. Corners are usually nice because then it always knows, oh, the corner's moving from here to here. So that's a good little spot. You can adjust the size of this tracker based off of how much movement between frames there are. So if I move this from frame to frame, you can see there's not a ton of movement. So I don't need to track, this is probably the most it moves from spot to spot. So I don't need my tracker to be huge. I don't need to search this whole area for my next frame. I might just make it a little bit bigger. That's fine. But I don't need it to be that big. There's not a lot of big movements. But if you notice your tracker is losing it and the camera is moving really fast, probably because this window is not big enough. So let's go to our first frame then. We have it selected on the right spot. And let's hit analyze forward here. And it'll go through the footage. Track that spot as best we can. She's very angry. She's acting as best she can right now. I don't know what this footage is for, but I always like to throw her in a desert because I don't know. That seems miserable. Okay, so footage is tracked. Looks great. Let's hit apply. It's going to send it to that null object. So it sends it here. If I hit U on here, you can see all these keyframes it created under position. Again, that's what we tracked. So we're done. We're done tracking now. We have the info. Now we need to cut her out of the green screen so we can throw our background on her. So let's do this. If we grab keylight, which is what we'll use to key out all this green, and we throw it on our footage, and we select our green, it's going to cut her out, but you can see we still have all this garbage on the edge. So we need to create a garbage mat to get rid of all this stuff on the edges, right? All this stuff. So let's get rid of keylight for now. Let's just make a mask and cut out all that garbage stuff. So I'll select my footage, grab my pen tool, and I will cut around her using as few masking points as possible. And I'm going to animate this mask as she walks. So I'm going to open up my mask properties, go to my path, create a keyframe at the very beginning. And while she's going through here, I'm just going to kind of shift these points over, right? The less green, the more we cut out, the less our keylight has to do, right? So I'm just kind of going to go through in wide chunks. Wide chunks meaning lots of time, and let the keyframe interpolation do the guessing of what's okay here. And then we'll go back through and make sure she doesn't cross in these little middle spots. So we'll do big chunks first, and we'll go back through later. Again, the less green we show, the less work keylight has to do. Whoops. Right? Also, the more time we go across, the more we have After Effects doing the work for us instead of us. You know, if we just went to here and then we adjusted it, that would be a lot of work that we really don't need to do. See, our blue spot down here is getting in our frames. We'll adjust that. Go to the end. Okay, looks good. Okay, so now we'll go back through in between these and see if she, like right here, you can see she got cut off. So we'll need to give us a little more space here. Oops. Okay, she gets cut off there. Okay, so we need more room. Give her a little more pad. Okay, we're good. Okay, so now when we cut this out, that's all we have to cut out. We don't have to worry about all that other crap, right? So let's grab our footage. We'll throw keylight 1.2 on it. And first thing we like to do is grab screen color and set that to the green. Okay, so we're already doing a pretty good job. I'm going to turn on my transparency so we can see, cut out all that stuff. It looks like it's almost like perfect, right? Well, it's not. If we go to final result here, actually the second step I like to do is set my dispel bias to her flesh colors, her skin tones, which is there. So once you set those two colors, we're going to set this to screen matte, and we can see black and white. Black is completely cut out. White is completely maintained. So you can see there's some blackness on her shirt here that we're actually cutting out that we don't want to do. So if we open up our screen matte options here, we have clip white, clip black. That's kind of what we want to use. So if we dial our clipping on our whites down, you're going to see her shirt gets filled up there. We want to just kind of dial it down just until it's all filled out. We'll go to our black. You see there's some whiteness around here that we're keeping. So dial that up a bit until that completely goes away. Make sure that we're good. Nothing else is sneaking in on us here. Okay, so if we go to our final result, that looks relatively good. Not bad. Our edges are a little funky. You know, there's a harsh black kind of a line on our on our edges here, so we can clean that up a little bit. We have a few options to do that. So right now our replace method is set to soft color. I always set mine to source. Soft color does a good job of kind of getting the green out that extra green, but we have green in her shirt. So for instance, if we set this to soft color, we have soft color, hard color, source, and none. Source I find to typically be the best. None, yeah, none turns her shirt blue too, so it's getting rid of some of that stuff. So if we set this just to look, if we set this to soft color, if we actually dial this into our green here, do soft colors that matter? No, it doesn't. Okay, let's undo that. Let's set it to source because we want to maintain that green in her shirt, and then we'll just have to do the hard work to get the green out of her hair, right? So, there's a few ways that we can do that, which are kind of nice. First, let's adjust our screen mats here to kind of soften those edges up. So let's look at clip rollback. If we start dialing this down, you can see that it gets rid of some of that. It also creates some weird softening on our edges here. So we'll dial it up a little bit, but not a ton. Maybe like 0.8. We have screen shrink and grow, so we can dial that back if we want. And it looks like we're losing some of our hair there, so we might go play with our gain and balance a little bit too to see if there's anything here that we can adjust. And we're losing a bit of her hair on the edges here. Let's see if we dial this back if we're going to get any of this. So we may have clipped our blacks a little bit too much. Let's go back to screen. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of that hair back. Okay. So I may have just done it a little bit too much. Let's go back to final. And we'll add about 0.2 softness. Soften the edges of her a little bit. Maybe 0.1. Don't want to do too much. I'm going to bring my roll back to about 0.3. Okay, so you can still see there's some green here. Still some of that green in her hair. And looks okay. There's a screen pre-blur here we can do to soften a little bit of that too if we want. So let's do like 0.3 on that. Okay. If we play with unmultiplied too, sometimes that gets rid of some of that green, but now it's making our edge look crazy. Let's our shrink and grow, let's bring this back to like negative 0.4. Gets rid of some of those hard edges on our side there. Okay, so next goal, next thing we can use to get rid of some of this green on her hair, if we go to type in saturation, this hue saturation, if we toss that on our footage, and make sure it's after key light here, we can go to our greens, and we can select a nice wide green range here. Oops. Sorry. I want the tealy colors as well. We're selecting the range here of our greens, and if we can actually kick this saturation way down, you can see that now her hair, we're losing all the greens in her hair, right? So we're losing some of her shirt too, so we can dial some of this back a little bit if we want. So that'll bring us a little bit of those greens back in her shirt. Her shirt's more of like a tealy color anyway. So there, now we kind of lost all the green around her hair, which is good. We just dialed the saturation down. You never know the difference. Okay, good, sweet. She's cut out. Looks great. So let's add a background now. We have our Dubai background here. Let's throw that under her. And let's scale this guy up. Kind of place that how we want. That looks good. And we will take our Dubai image and we will parent that to our tracker info. So now that shifts around with where the camera was. You can see we got some stuff here to take care of. So let's go back to our footage. Let's go open up our key light. Let's go back to our screen mat. A little bit of stuff leaking in here. So let's clip those blacks just a hair. There we go. All right, back to final result. It looks like we're getting a little bit of those greens in our hair still. Dial this guy. Apparently this guy doesn't want to get selected, so it is what it is. Okay. Looks good. We're going to tint her anyway, so we're going to lose a lot of that green. But now you can see if we take off key light, and no, that's fine. So our camera's tracked. Looks good. Our background's moving with her. I'm going to turn on motion blur on our background because it would blur in real life. So sweet, looks good. So now let's do a better job of getting this to look more realistic. First thing, Dubai background would be out of focus a little bit, so let's give that a fast blur. Okay, maybe like 10. Too much, maybe like 5. Okay, looks better. Lots of depth. Okay, still looks pretty fake. It's because our background has one white balance and one contrast setting, and she's on a different one. So let's try to match those. Let's select our footage. Let's type in CC toner. Throw that after our hue and saturation adjustment. This is awesome. You can set highlights, midtones, and set shadows here. So I'm gonna eyedrop onto a highlight of my background, a midtone of my background, and a shadow of my background. And now she's completely pretty much on the same color profile as that. And we can dial this up or down as we see fit. So blend with original at 100% is essentially using nothing that we just did. So we'll dial this back until it looks like she matches our footage pretty closely. So that looks like she's more in the desert. Looking good. Let's throw a curves effect on here too. And looks like she's a little more contrasty than our background. You can see these shadows here from our background. There's a lot more information in there. So let's do an inverse S curve here. We'll bring our highlights down, our shadows up. Okay, that looks good. Maybe our mids down. Actually, let's do an extra curves to bring everything down a little bit. We'll do a second one. Bring it all down. Okay, looking pretty good. I think that's pretty close. Can't remember anything else I did when we talked about it to make it look realistic, but I would say that's pretty darn realistic. Our depth, it may be a tad bit too blurred. You got to be careful when you're blurring backgrounds, because if you blur them more, set it to like 3. If you set it like crazy amount, sometimes you'll see it and it's like this, it's like, okay, obviously that's not, no, that's not what happened. So you can see I got a little bit of the mask in here. Let's dial that back. Let's rein you in a little bit, shall we? Cover that up. So set this to something reasonable, like 4, and we'll repeat our edges just in case. I always like to do that. So that looks pretty good. I like it. I like it. Let's go and do our laptop now. Let's do a new comp. I'll name it laptop. I will throw my footage in here. It's gonna have the same weird scaling thing. Set it to 150. Okay, so we're gonna use the same principle, except we're gonna replace a laptop on here. So let's get this footage tracked, and then we'll go get a screen replacement in there. So this hand, we got a movement. Oops, the camera moves in on it, and hand points, and we want to throw up a screen in there. So we'll grab our footage. We'll go to track motion. Actually, let's get a null object. Actually, this is gonna be a little bit different. Instead of dumping the tracking info on a null, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring our laptop in, the image that we're gonna place on top of it, which is this. I'll hide it for now, and we're gonna apply the info to that object on this one. We're gonna use a different track type. And so we were using transform before. We're gonna use a little bit different. So let's click our footage. We'll track motion. We're going to, instead of track type transform, we're going to do perspective corner pin. That'll give us 4 tracking points. And we want our target to be our laptop.png. So we'll go through, we'll grab our tracking points on the corners of these green spots. Oops, make sure my tracking point comes with. Gotta be precise here, so get as right onto this edge as we can. Oops. Okay, we get it. You're zooming in. Okay, we'll zoom in on this guy. Right on the edge there. Same thing with you. Right on the edge. Okay, looking pretty good. And so the hand's going to come in front of this. If I scrub through, our hand's going to come through and cover this tracking point up. So we're going to have to guesstimate and do a piece of this by hand. So let's do analyze forward until that hand comes up, which is about there. Okay, so when it moves forward past this point, it's going to get covered up. So if I analyze forward 1 frame, you can see it moved up here because it lost that green edge. So we're going to move this by hand, and we're going to look at these lines up here to align them to see if that's about right. So that's about where that would be, I think. And we're just going to go frame by frame while that hand's there to adjust where we think it's going to be. Okay, now we have our point back. Okay, now we can analyze forward again, and we'll let it do its thing until it covers it up again. It's right there, it lost it. So let's scroll back up until it was good, which is about, looks like it's still good there. Oops. Still good there. Let's analyze forward. Or just don't do anything. Why do you hate me? Analyze forward. Stop. Do we have to delete all this? Should we just delete all this info? Sure, why not? I don't know if that matters, but okay, let's go forward frame by frame from here. Looks good. Looks good. Now it's off. Okay, so we'll grab our point here. Looks good on that edge. Looks a little bit to the left, maybe. All right, there. Go forward again. Bring this up. A little bit to the left, maybe. A little bit more. Okay, so we're just guessing. Forward 1 more frame. Looks good. 1 more frame. More to the left. That's good. Pretty tedious, but you know, it's got to get done some way. Further to the left. Okay. It's the camera moving which makes this more difficult. If the camera wasn't moving, we wouldn't have to track all this craziness. But it wouldn't look realistic then. Okay, our hand is so close to being gone. More to the left. Okay, good. Now it's there again, so we can pick our spot right on the edge. And we will finish analyzing forward. Okay, finished. Remember, our target was our laptop, so when we hit apply, it will throw it on there. So what happened was, if I show this now, it applied that corner pin perspective to this guy. So now it's, looks like it might be off in a few spots, but it's a decent start for what we're going to do. So the thing now, when this hand goes in front of the footage, this laptop actually has to be below below that hand. So we got to put it below the footage. But when we do that, you can see the green part of the screen. So what we need to do is key that out. So let's grab our footage. Let's go to key light. Throw key light on top. We'll select the green. Select Dispel Biases Flesh Tones. Looks good. Okay. We'll go to Screen Matte. And open up our screen mat options, and we'll clip our whites. We're really just focused on what's going on at the laptop. So his hand, the whites on his hand are what we're looking at, and the blacks on the laptop. So about there. So if I scrub through this, make sure there's nothing else showing up that shouldn't be. Okay. Looks good. So if I go to final, I'm going to hide my laptop for now. So if I bring up screen, you can see that we're still affecting a lot of this other stuff. You know, we're cutting pieces out here that we don't really want to be doing. So we need to limit that to what we're doing. So if we go back to source, let's make a mask. And we just want to make a mask around this and animate it so we're only working within that mask. So let's just create a little mask here. Okay. And I want to animate that mask. So we'll hit path, animate. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to take chunks out of this mask. Just hide key light for now. Did it automatically give me a feather on that mask? No, it didn't. Okay. So we're just going to adjust this mask just to the outer edge of this laptop. I don't know what the deal is. Okay, I don't know what any of this is. There we go. I don't know what all that junk was that threw on there, but let's take a short break really quick. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we're going through adjusting this mask. Oops. Just to be around the outer edges of this screen. Again, big chunks at first, and then we'll fine tune after that. We want After Effects to do the work for us instead of us going through and doing small piece by small piece. All right. Okay. Now let's go back through these big holes here and make sure that they don't. Oops. Give it a little more pad here, more pad here. Yeah, that's where it gets off. There. Camera movement's not super smooth. If we get a little bit of the outside, it's not a huge deal. I don't think you'll notice, but as long as we make sure we keep all the green in there. Okay, looks good. Okay, so now we have this mask. I'm going to set it to none because we don't really want to worry about it. And if we open up Keylight and we go to outside mask, we want to set that to mask 1, the one we just created. So now we're not going to be affecting anything in here. If we invert that, turn this on to final result here. Oops, oops, oops. I'm sorry. Inside mask, perhaps? To mask 1? And then invert it. There we go. Okay, so you can see if you look at the window here, you can see if we turn it off, I want it to be inverted. So if I set this to none, you can see that we're kicking out a lot of that. If I set this to screen mat, you can see that there's stuff here that we're still affecting that we don't really want to affect. So when we go to final result and we kick this onto mask 1, now we're maintaining all that green. You know, when this was set to none, you can see we're sucking all the green out of our room. Well, we don't want to do that. So let's set it to mask 1. We'll invert it. Now, we're only keying out what's in here, which is nice. Okay. So his hand is actually pretty well taken care of. You can see there's some graininess in here. And that's from that soft or hard light um, on our screen mat. So if we set this back to source, now we're at no graininess in there now, right? A little bit of green there on his hand. Don't really want to get rid of all the green. I mean, we could. There's a lot of green tones in this footage, though. It's a problem. So let's just roll this clip back, maybe negative 0.5. Oops, negative 0.5. Am I typing? What's going on here? Oh, I'm sorry. It's already. We don't need to go negative. Rolling back is up. So set that to like a 0.5. We'll do our shrink to about negative 0.5. Just gonna remove a little bit of the edges off of his hand here. And that looks pretty darn good. Still a little bit of blackness here. Let's turn up the softness about 0.3. Soften the edges around that a little bit. Let's do our shrink negative 0.8. There we go. Good enough. Okay. All right, looks good. Okay, so now when we put our screen behind it, now all of a sudden we're looking pretty solid. You can see we have our transparency turned on here. Turn that off, now it just goes to black, which is fine. I'm just going to make a black background just in case we render this with an alpha channel. Now, even if this is set on, we always have that black behind, which is fine. So that looks good. Right? Solid. Now, we need to adjust our laptop.png to make this look a little bit more realistic. So, let's do this. Let's do that CC toner again. Let's get the colors correct on that footage. Because it still pulls in, based off of settings of our camera, which shot all this, it would still affect this, right? So let's grab some highlights from the window. That's too much of a highlight. Maybe like here. Nope, that's too green. Highlight down here. That looks good. Midtones for maybe the wall is what would carry over, and some shadows. That's probably the darkest spot. Maybe this over here. Looks fine. And we'll dial this just ever so slightly, right? Maybe 58%. Okay, so that matches about the colors of the scene, I think. Looks good. Let's throw some curves on there. Get this color a little bit better. Go to our blue channel. Let's bring our blue up a bit. The bottom, our highlights can, yeah, that's fine. Bring the blue channel up a little bit. Bring our green channel down just a hair. Okay. Looking good. Now, let's add a glow effect because the screen should be glowing a bit. Obviously not that much. That is crazy. Let's bring the intensity down. I just want it to glow just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. So maybe 0.15? Does that work? Yeah, good enough. Okay. The other thing is, based off of the screenshot, this is a screenshot, so it's perfect resolution. There's no focal issues on this. So we need to give it a little bit of a blur because it wouldn't be in perfect focus like this. We need to add a little bit of a fast blur. Let's do it before our glow though. Set this to maybe 2. Too much. Maybe 1.5. Oh, maybe 1. That's good. 1. Or repeat the edges like we always do. Last but not least, let's type in blinds. There's a Venetian blinds effect. It's really cool. We can add these little lines to our footage here. So if we go transition, it's supposed to be a transitional effect, but we can get these little lines in here. If we open this up to maybe 3%, angle them, act like they're little pixels. It's about the right angle there, probably. Good enough. And we set our width. We can add a whole bunch, that's a wide. If we go in, we get these little scan line looking things, right? We can feather them maybe 1. Maybe not so wide on them. Bring them up a little bit. Maybe about there. About there. Feather them to 2. So now it looks like we have these little scan lines like when you would shoot a monitor. Pretty cool, right? Pretty fancy. Okay, so there's our. Looks like our glow might be a little bit much. You can see our tracks off a little bit. So if we were going to do this for a real final project, we would go back through and adjust that track and make sure it's spot on. But you know what? That's pretty darn close. Oh, I noticed that we didn't add our motion blur, which we should probably do. But cool thing about this though is that we have all. This is our laptop. If we have another thing that we want to bring on here, we can just pre-compose this. Leave all attributes there. We want to leave all these effects on here. Hit OK. Oops. I'm sorry. I picked the wrong thing. No, that was right. I want to leave all the attributes. Okay, there we go. So I'm keeping everything we put on here. So we can go in here and we can adjust. We can do whatever we want. We can get rid of this. We can add, we can add the footage of our lady. Let's just add that whole comp, shall we? Where's our comp lady? This one. We can add this whole comp in here. Scale this up so it fills the screen. We go back. Look at that. Now we're looking at our lady. Pretty sweet. Not bad, right? That guy's pointing out how horrible of a job we did at making that look real. He's like, it looks fake here, and here, and here. Not bad, though. We're still getting, the blinds effect, a little bit of a glow. That's enough to impress a local crappy movie studio, I think. So anyway, there you go. That's some basic keying, some basic tracking stuff. Pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. You can have a lot of fun with this stuff. So, all right, until next time. Thanks, guys.